Do it.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Push it!
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's your pal Noms here, and today we are back talking about Cyberpunk 2077, and dear lord, things just got worse. I've been seeing everyone say that, oh, things get worse for CD Projekt Red, things just got a lot worse, blah, blah, blah. I thought they were just, I didn't really know what they were talking about. I was like, oh, they must have found another bug, or they must have found something that just made the situation worse, or something that was already in the game that was just brought to their attention. It turns out that I was mistaken, because a friend of mine, his name's Grant, thank you Grant, sent me this on Discord. It's an entire transcript of an investor call that took place 4 days after the release of Cyberpunk 2077, and CD Projekt Red is talking to their investors about what happened with the game, why it's in the state it is, and it's essentially proof that they knew they were putting out an unfinished game. I mean, we already knew, we suspected as much. Some of us, myself included, wanted to give CD Projekt Red the benefit of the doubt. There's no denying now, because we have it in writing. Anyway, this is an investor call that took place. I'm sorry if I'm a bit groggy. This is unscripted. I'm very tired. I just got off a 5-hour podcast on the main channel talking about The Mandalorian, and Cyberpunk was also mentioned on there. So this is going to be a very rambly video. I'm going to go through it with you step by step, and we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to try and just stay on point with this. I'm already trying to catch my breath. I'm just pretty tired at the moment. I'm sorry. I'm going to see what I can do this to the best of my ability, but it's essentially a script that, well, I'll be reading a script. It's just not going to be my script. It's going to be what the exact words that were said in the investor call, verbatim, right? And this is my last video. I made a previous video about Cyberpunk. I talked about how this is an indefensible thing, that they lied about the console launches being surprisingly good and how the state of the game was fine. They lied to their investors. Now they're doing another investor call that's essentially damage control. And this is what Adam Krasinski, whatever, the project lead at CD Projekt Red, this is what he had to say. So he goes, "Good morning, thank you all for joining the call. My name is Adam Krasinski. I am the joint CEO of CD Projekt. This meeting was organized to discuss the situation right now after the launch of Cyberpunk 2077. Like I said, he's damage controlling. At the beginning, I will present our current view of the situation, what we are in today. After that, you will have time to ask questions. I'm with Peter, Polish motherfucker, our CFO, Marcin Iwinski, the joint CEO and co-founder, Michael Nowakowski, the fucking Polish, man, I swear. Board meeting responsible for publishing. Okay, we released Cyberpunk 2077 4 days ago on December 10th. The game had a strong opening and we got positive feedback. And here's one thing I will say. Despite the game's shortcomings and, crappy performance in terms of frame rate and, a lot of its hilarious visual bugs and some game-breaking bugs that I've encountered, I still maintain that it's a relatively solid, maybe solid's not the right word, it's a relatively awesome game that's just bogged down by these obnoxious technical, here's the best way to summarize Cyberpunk. Awesome game, technical disaster. I said it in my last video, I'm saying it here, and I stand by that. The game had a strong opening, we got positive feedback from players enjoying it on stronger machines. PCs and next-gen consoles and even Stadia? Alright. I didn't know Stadia was having a good time with it. But the initial feedback from those playing it on the oldest last-gen consoles is way below our expectations. But is it really? Because you knew, you said in an investor call last month to these same investors that you knew that the Cyberpunk launch wasn't ready for those consoles. Are you really surprised that they had such a strong backlash? You knew there was going to be outrage. Like, we mean it was below your expectations. Okay, that's bullshit, guys. I'm calling bullshit on that. CD Projekt Red is a team that puts all their efforts and heart to deliver amazing games. So how was it even possible that it has come to this? Okay, well, I don't doubt that, and it's very clear that they put their heart and soul into Cyberpunk. It's a great game, so yeah, you tell us, how did it come to this? After 3 delays, we as the management board were too focused on releasing the game. We underestimated the scale and complexity of the issues. We ignored the signals about the need for additional time to refine the game on the past gen. the base last-gen consoles. It was the wrong approach, and against our business philosophy, on top of that, during the campaign, we showed the game mostly on PCs. So they said this was the wrong approach, and it was against our business philosophy. Yeah, you can say that again, because you guys have never been this sleazy before. You guys have never outright lied to your audience before. And like I said in my last video, you set a very dangerous precedent for yourself. Yeah, they've gone ways to righting that wrong by having a very open refund policy, which I can respect, and obviously acknowledging the mistake and apologizing. Sure, but the way Adam Kaczynski words everything that happened in the lead up to release, it makes this whole thing and the decisions made prior to release and CD Projekt Red's business practices, it just paints them in a horrible light. This makes them look awful, this investor call, and you'll see why soon. This caused the loss of gamers' trust and the reputation that we've been building through a big part of our lives. That's why our steps are solely focused on regaining those two things. Well, at least your priorities are in order. You should definitely work on that. We are concentrated on fixing Cyberpunk on last-gen consoles. The first substantial set of fixes was released over the weekend. The next set of fixes will be released within the next 7 days. I'm still waiting on that. Big updates are planned for January and February, and that's what really grinds my gears, because the fact that the game isn't going to be relatively smooth before Christmas, because this is being sold as a Christmas title. It's the reason they didn't delay it. I don't care what anyone says. They wanted that sweet, sweet Christmas sales. They wanted something to show their investors for the holiday season, and now they've got it, and that's why they pushed it out early. They had no problem delaying the game before, but now all of a sudden it's Christmas time and they don't want to delay it anymore because they wanted that moolah. They wanted it to sell. Really disappointing. Together with small fixes, of course, PC gamers will be also getting regular updates. Yes, I'm waiting. I want to get above 30 frames per second, please. I don't want to keep dropping down to 15 frames every time I'm in a crowded area. And fixes to improve the game. We will do everything possible to prove that we stick to our own values. We truly hope that our efforts will let us rebuild the trust we have lost. Thank you. Now we are ready for the Q&A section. Okay, so question 1 is like, hi there, I've got 3 questions. Firstly, I wonder if you could give us some more color on the impact this had over sales over the past 4 days since release for the old gen consoles. Obviously, it'd be great if you could give us a sense of what your current sales are at in total. Maybe on 2 digital platforms, that'd be most helpful, but if you can't give us an actual number, then maybe just some color on what impact you're seeing, and maybe a percentage of your sales that you expected to come from old gen consoles. That's the first question. Secondly, taking a step back and thinking what went wrong here, could you give us a sense of whether you think you could have released the game on old gen consoles in the way that you wanted to if you had more developers? Do you think this was a headcount capacity issue or a workflow issue? This is a great question, by the way. I want to know what the fuck happened too. Some color on that would be helpful. And finally, again, thinking forward to your additional content that you're planning to launch over the next 2 to 3 years, how do you feel about the ability to release a couple of DLCs next year and obviously multiplayer in 2022? They got multiplayer planned for 2022. That's for Cyberpunk. All right, I'm interested. That's something that I, as far as I know, wasn't promised. But if it's a multiplayer game, then whew, all right. I love it when developers exceed promises instead of failing to meet them. Peter Nebeluski is like, hello. We definitely saw good initial sales, especially on PC. Obviously, the I think is the CFO, which makes sense he'd be answering this question. So first off, that investor, those are some 3 excellent questions. And he says, yeah, we definitely saw good sales, especially on PC. Obviously, the current generation will cause console sales to drop. Sorry, the current situation will cause console sales to drop. But at this moment, on Monday, it's far too early to provide detailed feedback on that. We're still collecting data, especially from retail channels. And I'm afraid I won't be able to answer this question precisely. However, as we promised prior to this call, we plan to release sales numbers before the holiday break. And he goes, hi, this is Michael Nakowowski. He says, the second question, would having more developers help deliver the game on old gens? In terms of delivering the game at a certain point, it's really not about the number of people. It's not like throwing in the last month, like 200 or so people would actually help. So the answer is no. It's not a relative to the fact that we could have thrown in 300 or 500 more people into the fray and things would have happened differently. I think what he's trying to say is that they just simply took the wrong approach to development and whether or not they had more people in there wouldn't have made a difference because they prioritized the wrong things is what I think he was getting at with that. Obviously, he's put the most, public relations friendly spin on it. But yeah, the third question, and this is to Adam Kaczynski. To be honest, it's too early to judge. At the moment, please let us handle the situation and please let us make some more assessments. That's still ahead of us. We don't know yet, and we're now focused on improving Cyberpunk. We'll discuss this early next year. I'm really looking forward to that investor call if we get another transcript. I have 3 questions. First of all, I've seen that, this is the second question, and this guy's asking 3 questions. I've seen that you're offering refunds through Sony and Microsoft platforms and also through retailers. Since you made that kind of comment on Twitter, have you seen a flood of refund requests that you have to deal with? Or are most people who have already bought the game holding on to it? Of course, this is a great question because obviously they're investing in CD Projekt Red. If people are refunding on a mass scale, he wants to know, is your game being well received? If you guys aren't making money on this, or if you have to give your money back, I might have to pull out of this because you guys aren't a safe bet anymore. Trusting you that you'll make it more playable on old gen, are they holding out for that? Second question, do you think that you needed to have more external testing as part of the process, that everything is done in-house? If you had hired some outsourcers to do extensive testing, could you have had less of an issue here? And the third question regarding multiplayer, I've heard your answer to the previous question. Surely you won't rush that process though, given what you've been seeing now. Should we really be thinking about 2023 at the earliest for the arrival of that? That is an excellent question. He's essentially saying, are you guys going to rush it again? Are you guys going to pump that out in 2022? You've already put your deadlines back at least an extra couple of months. Anyway, Marcin Erwinski. I'll answer the first question regarding refunds. We are not encouraging gamers to return the game. We hope they'll give us a chance to improve upon the old-gen consoles. One fix was released last weekend. Another one is coming in 7 days, but there is an option. Obviously, and the easiest way to ask is the retailer for a refund. If that's not possible, we also provide help. That's true. CD Projekt Red made, I think, a website link that specifically caters to refund requests, so that was good of them. As of today, it's too early to say. We've just begun the process, and we sincerely hope that the gamers will prefer to wait for updates since they've had to wait so long for the game. But again, this is our humble hope. We'll assess the situation in a couple days when we have the numbers. Okay, and then it goes back to Adam Kaczynski. And he says, I'll take the second and third question. And here's where things get really, really, they get really, really interesting and really frustrating as well. I'll take the second and third question. We have an internal Q&A department, or QA department, and we're working with external companies as well. One thing that perhaps didn't help us is COVID-19. Which is more than fair, that's understandable. Internal testers are able to test the game working from home because we provide them with our own connected machines and so on. But external testers working from external companies were not able to test the game from homes. They have test centers, and if they were not there, they are not able to work. So we have seen a decrease in the number of testers, but I wouldn't point to it as the major source of problems. Okay, so that's a contributing factor, but it's not the major source. The major source that they've highlighted is the wrong approach to, what they've prioritized with the game. They didn't prioritize last gen. They didn't delay again when they should have, and the way they went about, prioritizing what the features of the game and how the game would run, and they wanted to make it playable, and I think they wanted to make sure newest gen was polished because obviously the new gen consoles just came out, and obviously PC, but for whatever reason they just took the wrong approach in development, and that's what led to so many issues being there on day one. The third one about multiplayer, first and foremost, we haven't confirmed any dates yet, and as I've said before, it's hard to judge now. We're in an unanticipated situation where he says an unanticipated situation. Well, I disagree with that, and we'll have to reassess. This is planned for January, and now focusing on managing the single player release, working on patches, communication, and as I said at the very beginning of this call, our focus remains on gamers. We'll see about further plans. The direction is obviously to proceed as planned, but we have to sit and discuss, and that will happen. Inaudible. I don't know what that means. The second questioner adds another question. He's like, can I sneak another question in? Among the more than 8 million pre-orders that you have, Jesus Christ, 8 million people pre-ordered this? Okay, it's no wonder we got such a buggy launch. But then again, that makes me wonder why the hell they didn't just delay the game again. Did you include in this figure people who started downloading the 2 days before launch on PC? They weren't really pre-orders. They were just getting it lined up so they could play. It's something that's treated differently across the industry. And I think it goes back to the CFO, so Chief Financial Officer, who talks about the sales and stuff, Nakowski. And he's like, I can take this one. You asked whether who started pre-downloading the PC version were included in pre-orders. Well, yes, because if they started to pre-download, they must have placed a pre-order. That's the group of people who were able to pre-download the game. So one group includes the other, so to speak. It's not like anyone could have pre-downloaded the game. That was an option only to people who had pre-purchased the game on the given storefront. Okay, well, there you go. So, yeah, the bottom line, they got their pre-order sales, so why the fuck didn't they delay it? They were swimming in the moolah. They had their game funded, bought and paid for, their investment back. So why the hell didn't they delay over the holidays? What? Fucking infuriating, seriously. Because they've said, Cyberpunk, expect nothing less than The Witcher 3, and The Witcher 3 had bugs too. Let me make that clear. I do think some of the game's performance issues are being blown way out of proportion because, I should probably say not performance issues. Performance issues suck, and they're there. But in terms of people getting frustrated and chastising the game and its features, I think some of them are blowing things way out of proportion. I agree the police system sucks. The wanted system needs a complete overhaul. But most of the bugs and glitches that I've seen are just hilarious aesthetical bugs that can be patched, no problem. And people are chastising the writing, and, it's very clear they haven't even played 2 hours of the game, and they're chastising the side quests and the lack of customization, and it's very clear they don't know what they're talking about. I'll admit some of the character customization, for example, there was only 3 tattoo options, which is a bit disappointing, and just stuff like that was a little bit streamlined. But nothing too not a ridiculous downgrade. It was still very extensive, like changing your eyes and changing your hair color, facial hair color, piercings, etc., etc. Hell, I didn't even have piercings on my character. I'm not a piercings guy. Anyway, he goes on to say, this is the third question now. A couple of questions. Firstly, your earlier comment about the board meeting being too focused on delivering the game and ignoring problems with old gen. I think this is where we get up to the good stuff. Should we take that you had found it was very important that the game shouldn't be delayed into next year, or simply that you had always wanted to deliver the game and not delay it, and you just underestimated the extent to which the last gen version was not going to be the way it should be? Or was it more about the launch is important, or more about we underestimated how bad the last gen's versions were? And secondly, and related to that, at the certification stage, presumably Microsoft and Sony will always get games that still have bugs, and they decided they're going to be okay, partly on the basis of discussions with you that there will be fixes. Have I understood that correctly? So he's basically asking if Microsoft and Sony were in on this. Or do you feel somehow that the certification process is kind of only one side or the other, and failed to identify just how underperforming the last gen version was? Perhaps I should add a final question to make it 3. Everyone has 3. He's talking about the other, everyone has 3 questions apparently, so I'll have my third. Are you confident that the last gen machines will be able to produce an acceptable version of this game? And I say this as a PS4 owner, so I hope so. But is it something that's simply too demanding, and in hindsight, no amount of fixing is going to be able to generate an acceptable performance? Thank you. Okay, so he's basically saying, will the last gen machines, Xbox One and PS4, will they be able to meet the standard, an acceptable standard, because this is a next gen game primarily? Okay, so CD Projekt Red answers that question. First, your question was about the focus and the cause of ours ignoring, so to speak, the shortcomings of the current gen version. It is more about us looking, as was previously stated, at the PC and next gen performance rather than the current gen. We definitely did not spend enough time looking at that. I wouldn't say we felt any external or internal pressure to launch on that day. Well, okay, so alright, so it's essentially, now he's essentially fucked himself, because, so it's no longer it's not, because I said this in my earlier video, they had no problem delaying it in April, in September, and in November. They had no problem delaying it. They just did it. Yeah, they faced a shit ton of fan outrage and when are we getting the game? Please deliver Cyberpunk, all that jazz. That wasn't a factor according to him now. And it wasn't internal pressure to launch on the day. So, alright, what was it then? Well, it's I mean, I don't know what he would be. What does internal pressure come down to? Like, they wanted to release the game, they were eager to release it. Okay, so it wasn't internal pressure either. Then why the fuck did you do it again? And that's why I hold by the Christmas sales, reasoning. Financial they just wanted more money. That was it. That's the only thing I can see. They didn't feel pressure to release it yet, but they knew Christmas season was coming up, the holiday season, and they wanted to have good figures for their fucking investors. This was an 8-year project after all. Big investment. They need their fucking return on investment, and they need to present something. And he said, anyway, he goes on to say, other than the normal pressure, which is typical for any release, okay, well, again, if it was normal pressure, you could have delayed. Okay, so that was not the cause. In terms of the certification process and the third parties, this is definitely on our side. I can only assume that they are trusting that we are going to fix things upon release. Here's the thing, the Master Chief Collection was fixed upon release. Sea of Thieves was made better upon release. No Man's Sky was made better upon release. Yes, I know this is CD Projekt Red's real, first time, disastrous, technical disaster launch, but it's not that. First off, it's not only that we hold CD Projekt Red to a higher standard. It's not that we're pointing the finger at them and we're like, some of us, again, I think are blowing things a little bit too out of proportion, but in terms of the game itself. As for the technical performance, we're absolutely pointing the finger because, it's not that I think CD Projekt Red thinks that gamers aren't used to this. Saying, look, we made a mistake, we fucked up, please forgive us. We understand that this is CD Projekt Red's, essentially their first really big rodeo. It's just, gamers, it's not the first for gamers, and gamers are tired of it. They're tired of these technical buggy fucking releases. They're tired of disappointing launches like this, and it was CD Projekt Red themselves that hyped up Cyberpunk and kept hyping it up, without tempering expectations in any way because they wanted that sweet Christmas cash. And they wanted to look good for their investors. That's why they said in the investor call that the current gen console, Xbox One and PS4, their performance with Cyberpunk was surprisingly good, when in reality it was surprisingly shit. So, yeah, not really sure where that rant came from, but, so basically the certification for the games being, playable, that was on CD Projekt Red. And anyway, regarding the third question, where we want to go with PlayStation and Xbox, as stated in the statement made public today in the morning, we are planning to get the game in a much better shape than it is now, of course, and a lot of that is going to be happening in December. Come January and February, you're going to see larger improvements, which we've stated already. We have also stated that if your expectation is that the game is going to be equal to, say, next gen or PC in terms of performance, that definitely isn't going to happen. Having said that, I'm not saying it's going to be a bad game, but if your expectations regarding, say, visuals or other performance angles are like this, then we're openly stating that's not going to be the case. It will be a good, playable, stable game without glitches and crashes, though. That's the intention. And the question, the interviewer gives this, he asks, again, just to be clear, he's like, okay, the last sentence I think is the key one. I don't expect next-gen performance on last gen, but I would like to actually be able to play through the game. Thank you very much. And then CD Projekt Red is like, yes, you will be able to. Thank you. It's like, way to go. That interview was a champ. He's like, yeah, I'm not asking for next-gen performance, dickhead. Can I play the game on my current gen that is being sold for full price? Because that's what everyone else is paying for, and that's what I expect. He's like, yes, you'll be able to play through it. Wonderful. Okay, then there's a fourth question. I don't know if I'm going to go through all of this. I just want to cover the main things that pertain to the game's mismarketing and lies and its launch. So let's have a look here. He says the fourth question is a couple of questions, please. The first one will be, will you still be doing your strategy update in Q1, or will that be postponed? He's talking about the first question. So the second question, obviously the gameplay on old-gen consoles wasn't really shown very much. Could you explain why you decided to hold that back? People just saw the PC gameplay, and I think, can you also talk about how you're deploying your staff now? How are you splitting what they are working on? How many people are still working on Cyberpunk? How many people are working on the mobile game? How many people are on the next Witcher game? Ooh, okay, so they're talking about the Witcher 4 perhaps. How many people on DLCs? How many people on multiplayer? Have you changed your expectations concerning staff allocation because of this? And does this push back things like The Witcher 4? I know you haven't announced it, so I don't know if the investors know about The Witcher 4 yet, and they're talking about it, or if the investors are just speculating, but could this be hinting at The Witcher 4? I don't know. I think I saw something about The Witcher 4 being in development a few months ago, but I thought that was just hearsay, so that's pretty interesting. He's like, I know you haven't announced Witcher 4 yet. Well, thanks, buddy, for talking about it. But you've said that people will be working on other titles once Cyberpunk is done. Thank you. Adam Kaczynski is like, okay, so regarding the strategy update, as of today, we're planning to release it in Q1 as planned. He's referring to the first question. For the second question, this is done by, I think, Marcin Owinski. For the second question, with regard to not showing the console version, we've actually shown console footage, but never on the last-gen consoles. The reason is that we were updating the game on last-gen consoles until the very last minute, and we thought we'd make it in time. Unfortunately, this resulted in giving it to reviewers just one day before the release, which was definitely too late, and the media didn't get the chance to review it properly, and this was not intended. We were just fixing the game up until that very last moment. Okay, so this comes back to their errors of prioritization and them not making last gen a priority. You still could have just delayed the game on last gen. I can understand them. I can actually even respect them prepping for the future, making sure the game was optimized for last gen first and foremost. But because in most cases, like and for PC, mind you, because in most cases, like a lot of PC games that come out, AAA releases on console are ported to the PC and they're not primarily optimized for it, or so I've been told. So, I think I heard somewhere that Halo Infinite, for instance, was being optimized for last gen, not next gen, which is just fucking ridiculous because Halo Infinite was meant to be a launch title for next gen. So way to disappoint on that account, 343. But I think that's something that they're trying to fix, and they're trying to make sure the next gen, it's going to be optimized for next gen as well. But you see, Halo, on the other hand, without throwing too much shade at 343, Halo took an extra year to release. It's coming out fall 2021 now. CD Projekt Red was going to release Cyberpunk on next gen and PC, but they weren't going to. They knew the console generation wasn't up to scratch, whether that was intended or not. That they thought they could maybe make the window in time to get the console the last generation console launch ready right on the release date. It doesn't really matter because you still didn't delay the game when you should have. You instead had a crunch session or a cram session, beat your developers to death, trying to get the game ready in time at the last possible moment for last gen, and you still released it, and it was a disaster. What you could have done is you could have delayed last gen by an extra month or two. That way, you'd be spending. You could have more effectively patched the PC and next gen versions, which are still having issues. And you could have, when you got back from holiday, you could have put most of your stuff on the last gens and had a proper release on PS4 and Xbox One. Though, again, of course, that would have meant a lot of Christmas sales lost because most people still have last gen. And I can understand how COVID-19 played a factor. Like I said, I respect them optimizing it for next gen and underestimating the effect of COVID-19 on next generation manufacturing before their release dates came out, which Microsoft and Sony refused to push back. Those two are always at each other's throats. So I can respect CD Projekt Red to an extent. Horrible managing of the situation though. And there's no excuse for putting out, bottom line, there's no excuse for putting out those kinds of products and lying about them, knowingly that they aren't up to scratch and still pushing them out without delay when you know they're not ready to make Christmas sales. Absolutely ridiculous. Unacceptable. Adam Kaczynski goes, regarding the allocations of teams, it's normal outside of the Cyberpunk teams. Spocko and the Gwent team are working on their projects. The Cyberpunk team were scheduled to continue working on patches. They will probably take some more time, but of course we are branching and working on future projects as well. We are also scheduling holidays. People are tired, and regardless of the situation and regardless of patches, and this is what really grinds my gears, not only do they want their Christmas sales, but because it's the holiday season and, understandably, it's not necessarily the employee's fault. They just do what they're told. It's management's fault. Whoever's on this panel, it's their fucking fault. It's not the employee's fault. The employees now need their rest and they need to come back after holidays and fix this game. The problem is, and that's why it's going to take up until January. The problem is, for the rest of December, meaning it won't be fully ready by Christmas and it won't be playable and enjoyable by Christmas, when CD Projekt Red wanted those Christmas sales, Cyberpunk's essentially up shit creek because CD Projekt Red's employees and virtually the whole CD Projekt Red team is going to be fucked off to enjoy their Christmas holidays, which, again, most of them deserve that holiday, but now they've left gamers and their purchasers in an abysmal state. I can only hope the next patch, whatever comes out, fixes a shit ton of issues, because right now, like, I'm enjoying the game, I'm having an awesome time with it when it works. When it works. It's a fantastic game, but playing it and having it run between 30 and 15 fucking frames at 1080p when my rig is capable of far more than that. Like I said, I can play last year's titles. Hell, even this year's titles at like above 90 frames per second at 2K. Like, you know, it's really, you know, it's a real disappointment there. And that's probably the biggest, you know, most frustrating part of this whole thing is the fact that the game's patches are going to take some time because of the holiday season. And CD Projekt Red, like, put it out to make the holiday season. It's absolutely terrible, man. It's terrible. Sorry, I got the hiccups. I've been talking so long. Okay, now this next question talks about the pre-orders. Like, I have a question about on your cost side. You said that the pre-orders covered the development and marketing costs of the game. Could you maybe provide the numbers now that the game has launched? And the second question, given the work which is required now to fix the bugs, glitches, and similar problems, how does this affect your costs with regard to marketing and development? Perhaps you could provide some color on that as well. Thank you. I think this is the CFO again. Unfortunately, I cannot share the cost related to additional work, but the cost of patching the game is irrelevant compared to what we have already spent. So there's no question, we definitely want to fix this game. We made a promise to gamers and we'll be doing everything to stick to it. And as far as the first part of the question is concerned, could you please repeat it? It's about the development and marketing costs of Cyberpunk that you have incurred so far. Maybe you could give us numbers. It's like, we're not revealing this data. A complete statement including our revenue and expenses related to marketing will be as part of the fourth quarter report, I think is what he's trying to say. And he's like, I'm sorry, but we're not providing guidance on that right now. And yeah, guys, that essentially sums up most of the important questions regarding the lies and deception regarding CD Projekt Red's marketing of the game and its claims about how well the game runs on next-gen and current-gen performance, especially on current-gen. And it basically sums up how they knew it wasn't ready, they prioritized horribly, they refused to delay. It wasn't external pressure from fans that made them do it. It wasn't a lack of employees, it was just an overestimation of their capabilities and prioritizing the wrong things. But ultimately, again, look, I love Cyberpunk 2077 for what it is. I do. I think it's an awesome game. No one's going to convince me otherwise. I get really annoyed when I see people trying to chastise the game because they're disgruntled with the performance and the technical issues, but they also say the game design is like, it's a horrible game. It's got bad writing, bad enemies, bad driving, etc., when those things can be explained as, you know, certainly part of the game design, i.e., you know, using a car that doesn't handle as well as another, or in my experience, the enemy AI has been pretty good. I played on hard difficulty, and the NPCs are the real AI, like the peripheral NPCs are the AI that's been having more trouble than the enemy AI. Bullet sponges, that's more to do with, you know, the RPG progression and not having the weapons aren't as effectual and stuff like that from what I've seen. And, you know, ultimately, you know, the graphical fidelity, the writing, the characters, all of that's fantastic. The open world itself is grandiose. Plenty of unique locations, tons of things to discover and explore. Like the NPC peripheral AI, like, again, I can understand how some people think it's below the standard CD Projekt Red set for themselves. I still think it's pretty decent from what I've seen. You know, the immersions there, you see characters, you know, playing guitars, playing chess at group rallies, someone's preaching to them, someone, you know, some of them are, you know, smoking in the corner or, you know, taking selfies or whatever, stuff like that. I think that's all fine. Like, I think, again, the game itself is pretty damn good. It's just not working properly. And CD Projekt Red, ultimately, I know that they downgraded certain features that I am aware of, and that also isn't okay, and that needs to be fixed pronto. They need to fulfill their promises. But, you know, if I had to put a number on it, I'd say like 85% of the game is what was promised at the moment, from a design standpoint. As for technical performance, that was a complete lie, and, you know, they knew it wasn't ready. And this investor call just sheds more light on that, and it's pretty disgusting how they chose to release the game unfinished anyway, and they didn't delay it again, and it wasn't the fans' fault, and they just wanted those Christmas sales, and now it's blowing up in their face, and they're trying to damage control it with this investor call. Because in the last investor call, they were lying to their investors, saying that the console performance on current gen is surprisingly good when it wasn't. Anyway, Cyberpunk, it's a real shame. It's not a disappointing game. It's tricky, because I am disappointed. I'm not disappointed at the game itself, but then again, I wasn't hanging off every trailer. I was actually avoiding trailers, and I made a video about this. I basically said the latest trailer hyped the shit out of me, because it essentially, showed me 5 minutes of what the game is like from a first-person perspective. It didn't run down features. It just showed like cutscenes and things like that, and some shooting mechanics, and parts of the city and combat, and locations and things like that, and first-person driving. And I was really excited based on what I was, not to mention the story. I wasn't hanging off every feature. This game for me was very much in the background. I'm like, yeah, Cyberpunk's coming out. Yeah, I'll play it when it comes out. Whatever. I was only really excited for this game in the last 2 weeks, and so far I went in and just kind of had my mind blown with how cool it was. It is a very interesting world, interesting characters. I personally really like the combat. It could be better, but I think the combat's very enjoyable. And I love the detail and depth and lore of Night City and its intricacies and everything. Is it as good as it could be? No. But from what I've seen in terms of the trailers, it's mostly there. Just the goddamn performance is just so frustrating, and it makes this whole thing that much more messy and that much more disgusting and horrible when you find out that CD Projekt Red knew about this. They knew it wasn't ready. They didn't mind delaying it again because they didn't care about the fans' external pressure to release the game. They just had to release it anyway because they wanted those Christmas sales. And it's a damn shame, guys. It's a damn shame. And I apologize for how rambly this video is. I wasn't planning on making it. I was sent this PDF. I've actually linked the PDF below. You're welcome to read it in full. Do what you wish. I'm just giving you my take on it. And I hope it was a bearable video to sit through. Not the most pleasant of videos. I imagine for some of you this would have pissed you off. And I hope I was able to sort of give you some catharsis with my take on this whole thing. And it's a damn shame, guys. It's a real mess. I'm very tired. I've been talking for including this video, I've been talking for about 6 hours on the mic today. So I need to rest my voice and, just, I don't know, drink some water, drink some coffee, maybe take a little nap in a shower. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for staying to the end of the video. You are a legend. Check out some of my other videos. Stay tuned, and I'll see you next time.